this is okay. So this is the working version, and then this is the starter version that I gave you guys. The only difference, I didn't change anything in the HTML or the CSS. Oops. Okay. Sorry about that. The only difference is in the JavaScript file. And I'll try to see how bad this is if I split screen this. Might be too crazy. Okay, so is that too small to read? You're not seeing the screen. Oh, I have to share it and record it. Yeah, not used to doing both. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you. Okay. I'm recording it, though. It is being recorded. So, how's that? Is that, can you read that? Yes, yes. Okay. Might be a little small on your screen. I apologize for that, especially if you're on a small device. But I'll try to go as slow as I can. So the one on the left is the working version. The one on the right is the one that I sent you guys. So everything up above is the same. And in fact, if you drop the one that I gave you into JSLint, it's going to yell at you about all of these variables because they're not used below in the one I gave you because I took all that stuff out. Okay. So I'm going to go down to where I chop things out to have you do them. So I gave you all this stuff all the way down here, and I tried to very clearly annotate where you have to do stuff. Okay, so right here, you need to implement this somehow. Okay, so I have an update wallet function, and you don't have to do it the way I did it. You don't have to call it what I called it, but you need to have a wallet of some kind. You have to keep track of how much money the player has. Okay, so I implemented that with a global wallet variable, the player wallet here, and I have this global update wallet function, and I just pass it the update amount, which can be a positive or negative amount, and then I have it handle that. So I have it checked to see if it's less than or equal to 0, and then I deal with that condition, things like that. Okay, so you don't have to be as fancy as I was here, where I had it kind of animate the filling up of the wallet where it counted up. You don't have to do that. So if you recall, like when it was empty, it counted up from 0 to 500 to fill the wallet up back up again. You don't have to do that. It can just appear as 500. But that's this kind of thing where it's just refilling using this. And then I did some clever things in here that you don't have to do. You don't have to have sounds. You don't have to do any of that, but you can if you want to. Playing sounds. I think I demonstrated before. Not super difficult. Jump in if you have questions. But so that's one thing you got to do. I gave you everything that's in card, so I'm actually going to collapse that. And you can use it or not. That's up to you. I gave you everything that's in deck. Same thing. You can change that or not. That's up to you. But then game is where you're going to have to do almost all the work. Okay. So I have. So I'll go through the first few of these just so you can kind of get a handle on how my documentation is working. So here I said create a new deck of cards each game. Okay. So here I just really took my comments and then took out what I did and replaced it with you need to implement this. Okay. So in this case it's just one line where I said let underscore deck equal new deck. Okay. So all I'm doing is calling that deck from above just creating a new deck of cards. Okay. And then down here, I'm saying array that holds the cards the dealer has been dealt. That's the dealer hand, and I just am creating an empty array. So I'm trying to document it, but if any of my documentation doesn't make sense, and you come up with a different way to accomplish the same thing, or accomplish it in a different way, that's totally okay. You're the programmer, and you can totally do this a different way if that makes more sense to you. I'm not gonna smack you down if you implement this slightly different than I do. As long as your code validates and it mostly works, you're going to be in good shape. And if you run into big hurdles, I of course will help you out with it too. But kind of want to see how far you guys can get kind of doing this on your own. And everything else is kind of similar as we go down. And most of this stuff is stuff that we have done in some fashion in the other projects. So here's an array that holds the dealer card images. I know I talked about that before, and I didn't upload it for the other session, but for your session, I uploaded the video where I walked through the code for this before, so that's in there already. So some of this stuff is in there for you to reference. So, and then we have our object that we're creating that we return, even though we're not really using it. This stuff as object-oriented programming. Same thing here. We have these getters and setters. If you didn't create these, this would still work. So, and it would be totally valid and fine. So there's a lot of extra code I have in mind that you don't actually need. And so now we'll go down to wallet, update wallet message. So I just had a little helper method here to update the update by ID wallet message where I can pass a message in. It's just a little shorthand so that I can keep this nice and, a little bit shorter. Keep the text shorter. Same thing with game message. Just make it a little more clear in the code when I'm using those. You don't have to use these. You could just do update by ID game message, or you could even change the HTML to something else and implement this differently. So kind of up to you how you want to do that, or not do it at all, depending on how you want the game to work. So game message is, saying like you won, you lost. Wallet message is saying things like you're out of money, things like that, or wager too high. The button set function is where I did the fancy disabling of the buttons. So I'll scroll down here. So again, if you're going to use that, you have to implement it. And it's not super hard. We're just grabbing by ID those buttons that already exist in the HTML, and you're just going .disabled or .disabled equals false or .disabled equals true. That's all that is. And you can do it the way I did with passing in a status and doing an if on that, or you can try to do it a different way. You could have two different methods that you call instead of a status. You could have turn buttons on, turn buttons off, if that makes more sense. However you want to implement that is fine. Same thing with set winner. You could have, have two methods, player winner and dealer winner. You could split this out so that the logic maybe makes a little more sense to you, so that you're not passing in a winner and a loser and having this might be more clear then. Totally up to you. So I tried to make these things generic so I could just pass the dealer or player in to have it deal with things, but that might not be as clear to you, so that's totally fine. And any questions so far? I'm kind of going fast, I know. And there's no reason I have to be going fast. I'm not in a hurry. I will pause for questions. Say no if there's no questions. No? Okay, good. Thank you. Because otherwise I get worried that my microphone got cut. All right, thank you. All right, that's good. All right, so now we're down to deal deck. So let's see. So same thing here. I'm passing the hand in. You could do a deal player deck and a deal dealer deck sort of thing, so you don't have to have this more complex logic. So the whole idea here is you're just a pushing a card onto the player hand. Okay, so we're doing a deck.deal and pushing that result onto the player hand. Okay, looks complicated, but it's actually kind of the whole point of doing this object-oriented programming, so we can like take objects and put them into, pass them to another object. And now we're to the setup. So the stuff we set up when we first create a game is we're going to create a deck. So we call deck create, and we call deck shuffle. Okay. So I mentioned that here. Mine creates and shuffles the deck. Okay. So a lot of comments here for not a lot of stuff that's going on. So that one's actually pretty easy. Get wager. I'm trying to check a lot of, different cases here of like, if you bid less than, if your wager is less than 1, then it, increases the wager up to the default wager, which I think I have set to 10 or maybe 100. And if you bid too high, it sets it to the player wallet. I think the total amount you have. So that's pretty straightforward. I think you could do some different. You could do that same. You can accomplish the same logic different ways. But ultimately, I just want to check for valid input and make sure that it's within the bounds of what would be a valid wager. So it can't be like smaller than $1, and it can't be greater than how much money you have. And start round is the biggest method, and I have a whole bunch of comments in here, and you could break this into multiple things, I guess. Whoops, I might have screwed this up. Let's see. Oh no, that's right. All right. So basically, when you start a new round, we're resetting the scores to 0. Okay, that should make a certain amount of sense. Okay, so reset player and dealer to 0. We're resetting their displayed scores to 0. Okay, so this is what's displayed. We're clearing their hands, so we're emptying the arrays. And then we're saying dealer hidden equals true. So we're going to say that first card is hidden again. Because after the previous round, that was set to false so that we could see it. We're clearing out the game message of the last round. And I probably shouldn't flip back and forth between saying game and round. I should probably have said round here in the comments, but it's a little ambiguous there, so sorry about that. And then because I'm doing that glow effect, I have to take that off. So that's what that does. So I do a for each. So I grab each image and I go for each, take off winner and loser off of all of those, off of all the images. This is not the ideal because they're not. It would never affect all the images. So I probably should not do it this way. But this just makes sure that happens. So there's probably a more correct way to do that. That accomplishes it just fine. It makes sure winner and loser are not applied to it at all. And let's see. So let's see. So here we're calling the button set up above to swap the buttons. Did I mention that here? I did not mention that here. Again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. That's a usability thing. So this would be the time to do that. So if you want to have that usability factor, you might want to put that into your own comments there, so you remember to do it. And here I update the player wallet. I update the display of the wallet in case that changed somewhere in here. And finally, this is where we call get wager, that method from above. So I'm calling get wager here. And all that does is it gets the input, checks to make sure it's valid, and gets and sets up the player wager variable. Stop me if you have questions. I'm going to assume you get it otherwise. And then, so here we're going to set all the dealer images to blank. And then this is actually not true. This comment is actually kind of confusing. I'm sorry. So, let's see. I guess that's true. So, because we have all the images up above, we're creating an array out of the collection of elements up above. And we're creating a standard array out of that so that we can do for each on it. Okay, so it kind of takes this syntax, and there's a few different ways to accomplish that, but this is a quick and easy way to do that. So if this seems like a way you'd want to do that, you might want to make a note. So this is what's kind of known in JavaScript as a prototype. So we're kind of applying the array prototype to the dealer images. And you don't have to worry too much about that, but that's kind of what's going on here. And then we're iterating through each of those items in the array. I'm calling them item, and then doing this stuff. Okay, so I'm calling my hide method that I have up above the hide. It's a global function, so I'm hiding each of those. So I'm setting those all to the blank card, which is the one without any numbers on, and then I'm actually hiding it. I'm flipping it over, like making it go away, making it invisible. And then I'm playing sounds. The deal sound, which is like beep, 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 beep. Okay, I still don't understand why almost before each function you call the object my. That is a great question. So when we call these, so there is a distinction between global functions. So we have a global function hide. Okay. And so that hide is way up top as kind of a global to our whole program here. So I have hide up here somewhere. Yep, so I have hide. And that we invoke with function hide. Okay? So then we can just call hide parenthesis and pass it an element. And then, how far down did we go here? To here. So then, but if we're going to call like my.dealDeck, we're saying the my dot means it's part of this object. Okay, so it's part of game. So we're saying we're inside a game. So we're saying my is part of game, and so we're explicitly saying my.dealDeck is a variable equal to a function. And so it's just how we set up functions to work as in objects. It's like you apply that function to the object. Yeah, it's just kind of the structure that JavaScript uses, and so like modern JavaScript lets us use classes. That is probably a little more straightforward if you're used to Java or other languages that use a class structure. So because in JavaScript, an object is really where we can just create it on the fly. So if I go up to where are my variables? This is an object here. Okay, my is the object. Okay, so and we can just create it like my equals curly brace, and then it's just key value pairs. Okay, so an object in JavaScript is just a collection of variables and their values. That's all it is. And but those variables can be their values can be functions, which is sort of like mind blowing sometimes. But it's very powerful and very simple. Like it allows the syntax to be very fluid and simple, but it can be confusing if you're used to like defining everything up top and being very structured like Java. It makes it a little hard. So I'm trying to kind of split the difference with this syntax. You wouldn't necessarily have to do it like this way. Hopefully that helps. And that's the whole idea with like these getters and setters. Like this is not required. This doesn't even have to be here. We're not using this. Okay. Like my.deck is a function that is a getter and a setter for the deck variable. But we don't use the my.deck function at all. So this could just be deleted. Like you don't even have to implement this. If you didn't implement this in your program, there'd be no problem with that. So, okay. And I probably won't reiterate everything in here. So start round just does a lot of stuff. So I do want to hit on most of this. So we do deal the 2 cards for the dealer. So these 2 cards, the first card and the second card, and then we show them appropriately. So we show the second card, and then we do the same thing with the player. And okay, good. So we're done with that then. So add cards. Same thing here. You wouldn't have to do this as passing in. You don't have to pass in a hand array. You could probably just have this be in line because all this really is a for each statement. You wouldn't have to make this a function. You could just do this in line. I tried to abstract this out just, and I don't know that there was much reason for that really. You could have done this in line and it would have been probably fine. So, but where add cards is called, oops, lost my chat there. So add cards just returns the total value of the cards that are passed into it. Okay. Score calls add cards, but notably it removes the hidden card. So it removes the value of the first card that the dealer has because that's flipped over. Okay, until it's not hidden. Okay, so if the dealer hidden is true, then we remove that value. So it doesn't even add it in. Okay, and then we update the dealer score on the screen and update the player score on the screen. And the way hit works is, so all these you have to implement. They hopefully won't be that hard. So we have set up an array for the hidden card images, file name for the newest image. So we're going to be adding an image. So we're going to create a temporary variable for the new image. And then I just made some comments about you probably can't go over 10 cards anyway, and I explained all that. So just explaining why this if is here. You maybe don't even need this if. Okay, so there's that. And then this is the array, hidden card images equals the hidden images, and I'm using that by Q function from up above. You could do this a few different ways. You could call each one literally one by one if you want to. You don't have to do anything fancy and sophisticated. There are 10 slots. You can keep track of those manually somehow, or keep track of them in an integer array, or keep track of them in individual variables, and just keep track of all that logic yourself. There's a lot of different ways to do that. And then, so we call deal deck. We display the recently added card image. So this is some. This looks a little bit crazy, but we're basically grabbing the file. We're creating the file name. There's an fname method here, and so we're assigning the file name that we're creating based on the card that was dealt. We're creating that and putting in a new image, and then we're setting the source of hidden card images sub-0 to that new image. So, and it's always sub-0 because it's always going to be the first slot of the hidden cards. Okay, in the way I'm doing it. So the first hidden card is always going to be the leftmost invisible card. So that's why this is always 0. That might be confusing. You could totally do it a different way. That's just the way I did it. And then this is how we make sure this works. We make sure to remove the hidden class so that this actually works. So we remove we make sure to show hidden card images. We make sure to show this, and then when we come back and call this again, the next slot will be hidden card images 0. So a little bit complicated. Yours does not have to be that complicated. Doesn't have to do all the same stuff. All right, stand. So if you recall, stand is when you say, I'm as close as I think I'm going to get to 17 without going over. I don't think the computer's going to get any closer. I don't think the dealer's going to get any closer. So what you're kind of saying is, okay, dealer, you take over and you deal yourself some cards and see if you can beat me. So we're basically doing the same thing here as what we did in Hit, but we're having the computer loop through and do that for the dealer. Okay, so we're doing the exact same stuff. We're grabbing the hidden card images, new image, but we're doing it for the dealer. So if you get it working for player, you can get it working for dealer. Okay, and everything's completely identical until you get to here, and then I have this while loop. And I have kind of a complicated while loop. You probably don't have to be quite as complicated, but I'm doing a few different things here. So I'm making sure that the dealer score is less than dealer stand. Okay, so that's critical. So you want to make sure that the dealer only deals itself a card up to a certain point. So I think I have the dealer stand set to 10, maybe 11. So whatever it's set at, while it's less than this condition will pass. So while the dealer score is less than 10, it'll deal another card. And while the length is less than max cards, so again, like max cards is set to 10. So like if it goes beyond 10, it's not going to deal another card. And the dealer score is less than the player score. So if it's it has to be below what you have already. If it's already above you, there's no reason for it to add another card. And then I have an or condition, or the player score is less than dealer stand, and player score is equal to dealer score. So I have a whole bunch of conditions. You could probably get by with fewer of these. Okay. And so then it just does the same thing as Hit, but it just does this in a loop. So nothing too fancy there. And bust is simply, we call bust to when we want to check to see if the player went over the max score of 17. So this doesn't necessarily even have to be its own function, because ultimately it's really just doing this and giving a message of some kind and setting some conditions then. It's basically ending the game, ending the round, and checking to see if you went over 17, and then updating the message and setting the winner to the dealer because you busted, losing your money, setting the button state to be the opposite so you can start a new round. So you don't have to do all those things. Bust doesn't even necessarily have to be its own function. It could be part of the gameplay somewhere else. And then winner, same thing. It says who won. and in my case, plays the sound, changes the button state, and then way down at the bottom here. So let's see, beep 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 beep. So I pulled this out. If you want to use these sounds, you can use these. So I have the card sound equals by ID card sound and so on. You can use your own. You can change those out. You can do whatever you want with those, or have no sound at all if you don't want to. Game equals new game. That's there. Although this doesn't do much right now. And because we're not using some of the things up there, it might give you weird results. Why the updating function has 0 minus dealer wager. Shouldn't be player wallet minus. So updating function. Let's see. So you're talking about the wallet update? Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna answer that last question first. So Morgan is asking, how much freedom do we have to change the game rules? So the game rules have to stay the same. It has to be the 17 game, so don't change the rules. But everything else about the game, you have total freedom. You can do whatever you want. It can look the way you want, but the game rules should be the same. So it should play like blackjack, like the simplified version of blackjack, and go up to 17. But like if you want the dealer to stand at 11 instead of 10, you can totally change that. Those little implementation details, that's totally fine. So you actually have a lot of freedom, but like the basics of the game should remain the same. Okay, so in update wallet, let's see. You're talking about. Zero minus. Where are you saying that? Oh, in line 620. Oh, when we're calling that. Yeah. Okay, because it's a negative. It's a negative number. Yeah. So and again, like this is probably more clever than it needs to be. But if the dealer wins, then I'm subtracting the player wager from my wallet. Okay, that's a great question, and you could probably you could create a like add to wallet and remove from like or subtract from wallet function, and that might be better. That might be more clear because like this is sort of weird. I agree. Like saying 0 minus player wager, that's a little weird. But that's how I did it. Yeah. So it is confusing, and I guess if I was doing it over, I'd probably separate that out. Yeah, excellent point. So, almost to the bottom here. Don't mean to drone on. Just kind of want to give you just the head-to-head here. So, new game. So then, when we create a new game, I call game setup. I set up those buttons to the correct state to start with. I say start a new game question mark. Update the wallet to a starting point. And then I add my listeners. So I have a new game button listener. I have a hit button listener, stand button listener. That's basically it. Okay. So basically, every time I hit a new game, when I hit the new game button, I clear out the wallet. I change the button set. I create a new round, and I update and display the score. Okay. So then it just kind of goes from there. Then it's listening basically for the hit button, and then so calls hit, updates the score, checks to see if it's busted. Okay. And then if I stand, it calls the stand function, calls score, calls winner. So winner only gets called when we hit stand because it checks to see if we actually won. So we're saying like because you can't win unless you hit stand, basically. So any questions about any of that? Yes. May have already said. Could you quick go over the layout for the rest of the semester? The layout. I think we're gonna kind of do things like this. I think we'll do like regular time. We'll do a hangout. I will try to record things that I think are valuable, and just kind of go as close to how we were working on things before as possible. Is it still project about every 2 weeks, or are we slowing down? No, I don't think we're going to slow down too much. I um, I changed up this project a little bit, but I just changed it. I didn't. It's harder in some ways and easier in others, but that's just based on some feedback from other semesters. So we'll see how that goes. You am I going to post a rubric for this project? So the grading for the projects, I am super lenient on projects. So the most important thing you can do is turn in a project. Okay. So if your code validates, and right now if you turned this in, if you turned in what I gave you, it doesn't validate. Okay. So if you get it to validate, you're going to get at least a 6 out of 10. Okay. So if you get it to validate and upload it, even if it doesn't really work, I'm going to give you a 6 out of 10. If I can go to your site and you click through it, you're going to get a 6 out of 10 on the project. Now that's not a great grade, but that's better than 0. So make sure to turn it in. Where can you see your grades for your project? In Canvas when I update that, and I still owe some of those. So yeah, I should have done that over break, and I did not finish up on that. So sorry about that. So as long as you have all your projects in, you have an excellent grade. If you don't have all your projects in, you're going to have not an excellent grade. That's really the long and short of it. When is the deadline for address book and for 17? The deadline is the end of the semester. I recommend that you have address book done by the end of this week and 17 by the end of next week. So those are my recommended due dates. But I'll give you full credit to the end of the semester. So I wouldn't wait. I would try to get them done. But and then let's see what else. Yeah, basically, if you implement everything that if your game works the way it's supposed to, sorry for your ignorance, but 17 game is the same as blackjack. So I will post my document that kind of explains the rules. I want to just double check and make sure it's clear. Make sure I nothing that I changed applies to that. I just want to review it before I post it. But I'll give you a document that just kind of explains that. So hopefully that clears it all up. But basically, 17, the rules are the same as blackjack, except blackjack has some advanced rules. Like there's a thing called double down, and there's like you can split, and there's some additional options that the player has, and you don't have any of that. I mean, you could implement those if you wanted to, but I'm not looking for any of that. I'm not like I'm gonna. It's easier for you to get a 10 out of 10 on this project than that anyway. I'm not going to give you a 20 out of 10. So there's no reason for you to implement it unless you really want to. But yeah, does that help? Yeah, could I quickly explain the address books project's grading? So if you add a field and add your own validation, and everything validates, and it looks like your own, you get 10 out of 10. So there will be a design grade and a function grade, and so if you made any attempt to make it look like your own, you get a 10 out of 10 on design. So I view that as kind of a grade booster. So if you made any attempt, so change fonts, change CSS, you did anything on there to make it look like your own, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. and give you 10 out of 10. It always has to validate your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript has to validate. And that's why it takes me so long to grade some of these, and I'm a little behind because I check all that stuff. But as long as it validates and you did those things, you get a 10 out of 10. Like, I want everybody to have a 10 out of 10. So, yeah, it just has to work, and you have to be able to add. Nope, everything has to validate. But the CSS and the HTML should be very simple. Like, you shouldn't have to make that many changes to it. So, and again, like the CSS, if you want to validate that, you can go to if you just Google, or in this case I use DuckDuckGo, CSS validator. It's this one, and then we just go to the direct input. So I'll grab this. Hopefully mine still validates. I don't think I made any changes. Yeah. Okay. So everything I give you to start with usually validates, because it's usually pretty simple. Okay. So it's gonna go through and check stuff. CSS is usually pretty simple. The HTML is usually pretty simple. And yeah, I will try to get those things updated. I'm going to stop the recording so that you don't have to listen to all the